The rain pattered relentlessly against the windows of our modest two-story home in suburban Seattle, turning the late afternoon sky into a watercolor blur of grays. It was the kind of November weather that seeped into your bones, making everything feel heavier, more inevitable. I'd spent the morning in the kitchen, the air thick with the scent of roasting turkey and simmering cranberry sauce, trying to summon some holiday cheer for Thanksgiving. Our daughter Lily was 12 now, all gangly limbs and sharp wit, helping me chop vegetables while humming along to an old playlist on her phone. She had my dark curls and her father's blue eyes, a perfect blend that always made my heart ache with love, and lately with worry. Mark and I had been married for 15 years, ever since we were both wide-eyed 20-somethings chasing dreams in the Pacific Northwest. He worked as a project manager for a tech firm downtown, the kind of job that demanded long hours and endless conference calls. I taught third grade at the local elementary school, finding solace in the chaos of recess and finger paints. Our life wasn't perfect, but it was ours, until the silences grew longer, the arguments sharper. Lately, Mark had been distant, his eyes glazing over during dinners, his phone a constant barrier between us. I'd chalked it up to stress, the economy dipping again, his promotion hanging in the balance. But deep down I knew it was more. The way he avoided my touch, the late nights at the office that stretched into dawn. Still, I pushed it aside. Holidays were for family, for pretending everything was fine. His parents, Tom and Elaine, arrived first, pulling up in their old Ford with the dented fender from that family road trip years ago. Tom was a retired mechanic, broad-shouldered and gruff, with a laugh that could fill a room. Elaine, ever the homemaker, carried a pecan pie wrapped in foil, her silver hair pinned back neatly. They hugged me at the door, the chill from outside clinging to their coats. "Smells divine, Sarah," Elaine said, her voice warm but edged with that familiar scrutiny. She and I had always gotten along, but I sensed her quiet judgments. The way I'd chosen a career over more kids, the modern life we led that clashed with her traditional roots. Mark's sister, Jenna, and her husband, Rick, showed up next with their 2 boys in tow, a whirlwind of noise and energy. The kids, 8 and 10, immediately tackled Lily in the living room, turning our space into a makeshift battlefield of couch cushions and giggles. Jenna, with her sharp bob haircut and no-nonsense demeanor, pulled me aside in the kitchen while I basted the turkey. "You okay? Mark looks like he's carrying the world." Her eyes searched mine and I forced a smile, stirring the gravy to avoid her gaze. "Yeah, just the usual holiday rush," I lied, my stomach twisting. Jenna had always been the perceptive one, the sibling who called out Mark's flaws before anyone else. Rick, affable and quiet, helped Tom set the table in the dining room, their voices murmuring about football scores and the Seahawks' slim playoff chances. By the time we all gathered around the table, the rain had picked up, drumming like impatient fingers on the roof. The dining room glowed under the soft light of the chandelier I'd picked out during a rare date night last spring. Place settings were simple: white china from our wedding, cloth napkins folded just so. Lily sat between me and Mark, her excitement bubbling as she passed the mashed potatoes. "Pass the rolls, Grandma," she chirped to Elaine, who beamed and obliged. Mark cleared his throat midway through the meal, his fork pausing over his plate. The conversation had been light, stories of Jenna's new job at the hospital, Tom's latest fishing mishap. But now the room hushed slightly, sensing a shift. He looked around the table, his face pale under the warm light, jaw set in that determined way I knew too well. "Everyone, I need to say something," he began, his voice steady but laced with something brittle. My heart stuttered. Lily glanced at me, her brow furrowing, but I squeezed her hand under the table, willing calm into my veins. Tom leaned back, wiping his mouth with a napkin. "What's on your mind, son? Bad news from work?" Mark shook his head, eyes fixed on his plate for a moment before lifting to meet mine. "No, it's personal. Sarah and I—" He trailed off, the words hanging like the storm clouds outside. The rain seemed louder now, drowning out the faint hum of the heater. Jenna's fork clattered softly against her plate, and Elaine's hand fluttered to her chest. I felt the air thicken, my pulse racing. We'd talked in whispers last week, late at night when Lily was asleep, about space, about trying again. But nothing like this. Not here, not now. "Mark?" I whispered, my voice barely audible over the downpour. He took a deep breath, pushing his chair back slightly. "Sarah, I think we need to end this. I want a divorce." The words landed like a thunderclap, shattering the fragile peace. Gasps rippled around the table. Tom's chair scraped as he sat up straighter. Elaine's eyes widened in shock. Jenna's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Rick muttered a low, "What the hell?" under his breath, pulling his boys closer. Lily's hand went limp in mine, her small face draining of color as she stared at her father. The room spun for me, the turkey congealing on my plate, the holiday scents turning sour. 15 years boiled down to this moment, exposed under the gaze of his entire family. Betrayal burned in my chest, hot and unrelenting, mingling with the chill of the rain seeping through the cracks. How could he? In front of them all, like I was some inconvenient footnote. Lily blinked, tears welling but not falling, her voice cutting through the stunned silence like a knife. "Daddy, why? What did Mommy do wrong?" Mark's face crumpled, the color leaching from his cheeks, until he looked ghostly, as if her innocent question had stripped him bare. The weight of it all pressed down, the storm outside mirroring the one brewing within our fractured family. The silence that followed Lily's question stretched like a taut wire, ready to snap. Mark's fork slipped from his fingers, clattering against his plate, with a sound that echoed too loudly in the frozen room. His blue eyes, so like Lily's, darted to her face, then away, as if the sight of her confusion was a physical blow. The rain hammered the windows harder now, a relentless backdrop to the chaos unfolding inside. I sat there, numb, my hand still clutching Lily's under the tablecloth, feeling her small fingers tremble against mine. The turkey sat half-eaten, congealing under the chandelier's glow, and the cranberry sauce's tart sweetness turned cloying in my mouth. Elaine was the first to move, her chair scraping back as she reached across the table toward Mark. "Mark, what on earth? This isn't the time or place." Her voice cracked, the homemaker's poise fracturing into something raw and maternal. Tom, usually the steady one, rubbed a calloused hand over his stubbled jaw, his broad shoulders slumping as he looked between his son and me. "Son, you can't just drop this like a bomb. We've all had a few drinks. Maybe we talk this out later." But Jenna wasn't waiting. She pushed her plate away, her sharp features hardening into the protective fury I'd seen glimpses of during family spats. "Are you serious, Mark? Here? In front of the kids?" Her voice rose, slicing through the tension like a scalpel. Rick nodded beside her, his arm around the boys who were wide-eyed and whispering to each other. The holiday magic shattered. One of them, little Ethan, tugged at Rick's sleeve. "Is Uncle Mark leaving Aunt Sarah?" Mark swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing visibly. He looked older suddenly, the lines around his eyes deeper in the warm light, his salt-and-pepper hair disheveled from running a hand through it earlier. "Lily, honey," he started, his voice hoarse. "It's not about Mommy doing anything wrong. It's complicated, grown-up stuff." But his words faltered, lacking conviction, and Lily's lip quivered, her question hanging unanswered like an accusation. I couldn't let it stand. The shock was thawing into a slow burn of anger, hot and protective, surging through my veins. "Complicated?" I echoed, my voice steadier than I felt. I pulled my hand from Lily's to grip the edge of the table, the wood cool under my palms. 15 years, Mark. Our home, our daughter, and you choose Thanksgiving, with everyone here, to say this?" The words tumbled out, laced with the hurt I'd buried for months. Outside, a gust of wind rattled the panes, sending a shiver through the room. The Pacific Northwest chill had nothing on the ice settling in my chest. He met my gaze then, really met it, and I saw the guilt flicker there, mingled with something resolute. "Sarah, I've been trying to tell you. The late nights, the distance. It's not just work. I feel trapped, like we're going through the motions." His confession hung heavy, the family leaning in despite themselves. Elaine gasped softly, her hand now covering her mouth, while Tom muttered, "Trapped? Boy, marriage ain't a cage." Lily shifted in her seat, her chair creaking. She was 12, old enough to sense the undercurrents, but young enough that the world still felt black and white. But Daddy, you promised we'd go to the Space Needle lights this weekend. All of us. Her voice was small, pleading, and it twisted the knife deeper. Mark's face paled further, the colour draining to a sickly white as if her words had peeled back his defences. He reached for her hand, but she pulled away, crossing her arms over her chest, her curls falling like a curtain over her tear-streaked cheeks. Jenna stood up abruptly, her napkin fluttering to the floor. "This is bullshit, Mark. If you're unhappy, you talk to Sarah privately. Not like this, not humiliating her in front of us." She turned to me, her eyes softening. "Sarah, I'm so sorry. We had no idea." Rick nodded, corralling the boys toward the living room with a murmured, "Let's give them space, guys." The kids scampered off, but their whispers trailed behind like echoes. Elaine dabbed at her eyes with her napkin, her silver hair slipping from its pins. "We've always been a family that works things out. Remember when you two fought over that house down payment? You came through." But her words felt hollow, a desperate grasp at nostalgia. Tom cleared his throat, his gruff voice cutting in. "Mark, whatever's eating you, it ain't worth breaking this. Lily needs her folks together." I stood then, my legs unsteady, the room tilting slightly from the emotional whiplash. The scent of cooling pie from the kitchen mocked the ruined meal. "I need air," I said, more to myself than anyone. But Lily latched onto my arm. "Mommy, don't go. Please." Her plea anchored me, her warmth a lifeline amid the storm. I knelt beside her, brushing a curl from her forehead, my own tears blurring the edges of her face. "I'm not going anywhere, baby. We're in this together." Mark watched us, his expression crumbling into regret, but he didn't take it back. Instead, he pushed back from the table and headed to the living room, the floorboards creaking under his weight. The rain pounded on indifferent as the family splintered, whispers starting up, alliances forming in hushed tones. Jenna followed me to the kitchen later, helping clear plates in silence at first. "He's been seeing someone," she confided finally, her voice low as she scraped leftovers into the trash. "I overheard him on the phone last week. Some co-worker. I'm sorry I didn't say anything sooner." The revelation hit like another thunderclap, confirming the suspicions I'd pushed down. Anger flared anew, but so did a spark of resolve. With Jenna's support, raw and unfiltered, I felt the first stirrings of strength. Lily wandered in then, hugging my waist, her small body a reminder of what was at stake. As the evening unraveled into awkward goodbyes, coats grabbed hastily, pie slices wrapped to go, the weight of the night settled over me like the damp Seattle fog rolling in from the Sound. But in that moment, holding my daughter close amid the clatter of dishes and the fading echoes of family voices, I knew this wasn't the end. It was the beginning of fighting for what we'd built, one painful step at a time. Mark's car keys jingled from the hall, a signal he was leaving for the night, and Lily's whisper broke the quiet. "We'll be okay, Mommy, I know it." Her faith, fragile as it was, ignited something fierce in me, a determination to uncover the truth and reclaim our story. The days following Thanksgiving blurred into a grey haze, the Seattle rain unrelenting, mirroring the storm still churning inside me. Our home, once a sanctuary of shared routines, morning coffee on the porch, evenings with Lily's laughter filling the rooms, now felt like a minefield. Mark had packed a bag that night and stayed at a motel downtown, his text messages sparse. "Need space. We'll talk soon." I stared at my phone in the dim kitchen light, the screen's glow casting shadows on the counter where I'd once planned family vacations. Space. After 15 years, that's what it boiled down to? The word echoed hollowly, fueling the anger that simmered beneath my exhaustion. Lily was the anchor keeping me from unraveling completely. At 12, she was navigating this wreckage with a resilience that both broke and mended my heart. School had let out for the holiday break, but she spent mornings curled on the couch with her sketchbook, drawing intricate scenes of rainy cityscapes dotted with hidden families, subtle pleas for normalcy. "Mum, can we bake cookies today? Like we used to with Dad?" she'd ask, her blue eyes searching mine, hopeful yet guarded. I'd nod, pulling out the flour and chocolate chips, the oven's warmth a temporary shield against the chill seeping through the windows. But as we measured ingredients, her questions came. Why does Daddy want to leave? Is it because of me? Each one was a dagger, twisting deeper, forcing me to craft answers that protected her innocence without lying outright. You're not the reason, sweetie, I'd say, kneading the dough with more force than necessary. Grown-ups sometimes drift apart like boats in a fog, but we're your safe harbor, always. She nodded, but doubt lingered in the furrow of her brow, a mirror of the worry lines etching my own face. Sleepless nights had me up at dawn, pacing the hallway, the floorboards groaning underfoot. The house was too quiet without Mark's morning shuffle, or the clink of his keys on the entry table. I replayed the dinner in my mind, the shock on Elaine's face, Tom's stunned silence, Jenna's fierce loyalty. Their support texts trickled in, Elaine offering to watch Lily, Tom grumbling about that fool son of mine. But it was Jenna who became my lifeline. She showed up unannounced on Monday afternoon, her car splashing through puddles in the driveway. The sky hung low, heavy with the threat of more rain, and the neighborhood streets were slick with fallen leaves, turning the familiar suburban lanes into something somber. Jenna hugged me at the door, her coat damp, carrying takeout from our favorite Thai place. Pad CU and spring rolls, comfort food we'd shared during college visits. Can't let you starve on frozen dinners, she said, her voice brisk but eyes soft with concern. We settled in the living room, Lily upstairs napping off a headache from the emotional toll. The fire I'd lit crackled in the hearth, casting flickering light on the family photos lining the mantel. Mark and me at our wedding on Alki Beach. Lily's first day of school, all smiles frozen in time. Over steaming plates, Jenna laid it out plain. I confronted him yesterday. Drove to his motel like a bat out of hell. She paused, twisting a napkin in her hands, her sharp features taut. Rick had stayed home with the boys, she explained, giving her space to meddle as only a sister could. Mark had admitted it, the affair with his co-worker. Lisa, some marketing exec who joined the firm 6 months back. It started as late-night projects, Jenna recounted, her tone laced with disgust. Then drinks after work. He swears it's not serious, just an escape from the routine here. Routine. The word stung, reducing our life, Lily's recitals, my school plays, the quiet anniversaries, to drudgery. I set my fork down, the spicy noodles turning to ash in my mouth. Escape? What about us? He built this with me. Tears pricked, hot and unwelcome, but Jenna reached across the coffee table, squeezing my hand. Her grip was firm, calloused from years in nursing, a reminder of her no-frills strength. You're not alone, Sarah. Rick and I, we've got your back, and the parents? They're livid. Tom wants to drag Mark fishing, a man-to-man talk, but Elaine's already planning how to guilt him into counseling. She leaned in, voice dropping. But you need to decide what you want. Fight for it, or let him go. The question hung there, heavier than the damp air outside. A gust rattled the windows, sending a shiver through the room. Upstairs, Lily's footsteps padded softly. She was awake, listening, perhaps. I thought of the obstacles ahead, dividing assets in this economy, the custody battles that could scar her, the loneliness of single parenting in a city where couples our age still seemed unbreakable. Mark's betrayal was a chasm, but crossing it meant facing my own role, the complacency I'd let creep in, the arguments left unresolved. I want to fight, I admitted finally, the words surprising even me. For Lily, for what we had, if it's salvageable. Jenna nodded, approval in her eyes. Then start with the truth. Call a lawyer tomorrow and talk to Lily. Really talk. She's tougher than you think. We finished the meal in companionable silence, the food warming me from within. As she left, promising to check in daily, I felt a shift, a spark of agency amid the grief. Lily came down then, rubbing her eyes, her pajamas rumpled. Aunt Jenna was here? Did she bring food? I smiled, pulling her into a hug, the scent of her shampoo, lavender from bath night, grounding me. That evening, after tucking her in with stories of our family's silly traditions, I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of chamomile tea, steam curling like unanswered questions. The rain had eased to a drizzle, streetlights haloing the wet pavement outside. Mark called then, his voice tentative over the line. Sarah, can we meet? Neutral ground. Coffee tomorrow? I hesitated, heart pounding, but Lily's earlier words echoed, "We'll be okay, Mommy." With Jenna's support bolstering me, and the family's quiet rally behind, I agreed. The park by the lake. Noon. Hanging up, I felt the first real stirrings of resolve, not just survival but growth. This fracture could rebuild us stronger or set me free. Either way, I wouldn't face it pale and passive. The night deepened, the city humming faintly beyond the walls as I braced for the confrontation that might redefine everything. The noon sun struggled to pierce the low-hanging clouds over Green Lake, casting a muted light on the water's rippling surface. Seattle's winter chill nipped at my cheeks as I walked the gravel path, my boots crunching softly with each step. The park was alive with joggers bundled in rain jackets and families pushing strollers, the air crisp with the scent of wet pine and distant coffee from the nearby roastery. I'd left Lily with Elaine that morning, her grandmother's gentle insistence a balm. "Go, dear. Sort this out. I'll spoil her with stories of your dad's old fishing tales." Elaine's hug had been fierce, her silver hair smelling of lavender soap, a quiet promise of unwavering support. Tom had texted earlier, "Give him hell if he deserves it, but listen too." Their backing, simple and steadfast, steadied me against the knot of nerves twisting in my gut. Mark was already there, sitting on a weathered bench overlooking the lake, his coat collar turned up against the breeze. He looked smaller somehow, his broad frame hunched, the lines around his eyes etched deeper by the sleepless nights we'd both endured. A paper cup steamed in his hands, black coffee, no doubt, the way he'd always taken it during our early morning walks years ago. Spotting me, he stood, his movements tentative, like he was navigating unfamiliar terrain. "Sarah," he said, voice rough, as if the word had caught in his throat. I stopped a few feet away, arms crossed over my chest, the wool of my sweater a thin armor against the vulnerability threatening to spill out. "Thanks for coming," he continued, gesturing to the bench. "I know this is hard." I sat at the far end, the wood damp and cool beneath me, keeping distance between us like an invisible line drawn in the sand. Ducks quacked lazily from the water's edge, their normalcy a stark contrast to the turmoil churning inside. "Hard? Mark, you shattered our family in front of everyone. Lily hasn't slept right since." My words came out sharper than intended, laced with the pent-up fury I'd channeled into yoga sessions and late-night journals. The affair, Lisa's name now a bitter echo, hung unspoken between us, but I wouldn't let him dodge it. He nodded, staring at the lake where a light mist began to swirl, the first hint of the afternoon drizzle. I know, I was wrong, cruel even, to do it that way. The words just came out. I'd been carrying it too long. His confession spilled then, halting at first, then gaining momentum like the wind picking up off the water. The late nights weren't just work. Lisa had been a distraction, a spark in the monotony he'd convinced himself our life had become. "It wasn't about you not being enough," he said, eyes meeting mine with a rawness I hadn't seen in months. "It was me, feeling stuck, like I lost who I was after Lily, after the house, the routines. She made me feel alive again. But it's over now. I ended it last week, after Jenna cornered me." The admission landed with a mix of relief and rage, my hands clenching in my lap. Alive. The word stung, reducing our shared history to a cage he'd escaped. "And what about us? Lily?" You pale-faced at her question, like you'd been gut-punched. Did that wake you up, or was it just the family spotlight? The mist turned to fine rain, dotting the path and beading on our coats, but I didn't move. Around us, a couple strolled by with a leashed dog, their laughter a distant reminder of what we'd lost. Mark's shoulders sagged, rain tracing paths down his temple. "Both." Her words hit hardest. "She's our kid, Sarah. Smart, fierce, just like you. I saw what I was risking, what I'd already damaged." He paused, rubbing his face, the stubble rough under his palm. "I don't want the divorce. Not anymore. If you'll give me a chance, I'll do the work. Counseling, transparency, whatever it takes. But I get it if you can't. If this is the end." The rain picked up, pattering on the lake like scattered applause, soaking through my scarf. Obstacles loomed in my mind, rebuilding trust after betrayal, navigating co-parenting if we stayed, or the heartbreak of separation in a city where every corner held our memories, the park where we'd picnicked with baby Lily, the trails we'd hiked during rough patches. Tears mixed with the rain on my cheeks, hot and unbidden. "I don't know if I can forget," I whispered, voice breaking, "but I won't let you walk away without fighting for her if not for us." His hand reached toward mine. Hesitant, and for the first time in weeks I didn't pull away. The contact was electric, a fragile bridge over the chasm. We sat there as the downpour eased, talking in fits and starts, about the complacency we'd both let fester, the stresses of his job bleeding into home, my own fears of fading into the background of motherhood. No grand gestures, just honest words, the kind we'd stopped sharing long ago. By the time we stood, the clouds parting slightly to reveal a sliver of blue, a tentative plan formed. Couples therapy starting next week, family sessions for Lily, and slow steps to mend what was cracked. "One day at a time," Mark said, echoing the mantra we'd used during Lily's toddler tantrums. Driving home, the wipers swiping rhythmically against the windshield, I felt the weight lift, not gone but shared. Elaine and Tom waited at the house, Lily between them on the couch, her sketchbook open to a new drawing. A family under a rainbow, boats no longer adrift. Jenna arrived soon after, her car pulling up with Rick and the boys, turning the living room into a hubbub of noise and warmth. Hugs, questions, cautious optimism filled the air, the scent of Elaine's fresh-baked bread wafting from the kitchen. Lily ran to me, her arms wrapping tight. "Did Daddy come back, Mummy?" I knelt, meeting her blue eyes, so full of hope. "He's trying, baby. We're all trying." As evening fell, the rain a soft murmur outside, we gathered around the table, not for turkey, but for pizza and stories, laughter threading through the lingering tension. Mark joined us later, his presence awkward but earnest, sitting beside Lily and listening as she chattered about school. In that moment, amid the clatter of plates and the glow of string lights I'd hung last Christmas, I saw the path forward, messy, uncertain, but ours. The fracture had exposed our weaknesses, but with family woven in like threads in a tapestry. Jenna's fire, Tom's steadiness, Elaine's quiet faith, Lily's unyielding heart. It promised growth. Not perfection, but resilience. And as Mark's hand brushed mine under the table, tentative and real, I felt the pale shadow of doubt recede, replaced by a quiet, hard-won light.